throw an ugly bait in the water, but I think I can throw just looks like a crawfish in the lake and catch a bass on it if I do the right thing with it. And like I say, I spend a lot of my time, pulling my rod along real easy and keeping my jig on the bottom. I fully think that a crawfish spends a lot of his time on the bottom, because if he didn't, he would be eaten into extinction. A lot of time on the bottom, crawling around, finding a place to hide, and you just have to be patient with your jig cast. Now when they're biting, you can't do nothing wrong with it. Just pitch it out there and let one eat it. But when they're not biting, that's when you kind of got to think about what you're doing with your lure and what that crawfish is doing down on the bottom. One of the greatest things I did and taught me more about fishing and jig fishing than anything, I grew up with a fish tank in the house. I mean, we always had a fish tank in the house. We would feed it minnows. We would feed the bass minnows out of the creek. We would catch crawfish. We would feed it everything that we thought it would ever need, different bass. And main thing that always intrigued me about it was we tried to have a spotted bass or largemouth bass in the tank. They could have their mouths so full of minnows that they're sticking out their gills and tails are out their face, and you drop a crawdad in there with them, and they'll spit it out and go eat that crawdad. Well, to me, guess what? if it happens in captivity, it dang sure happens out there in the wild. So therefore, for me, a jig is just one of them baits. A little jig. I'm not talking about a great big jig most of the time. It's normally a small Ekin style jig, something pretty tiny. That's a rod it's always rigged up in my boat. And I'm talking from fishing in upstate New York to Florida to California. It don't matter where you're at, there's crawfish in those lakes. And like I say, a fish will eat it if you get in front of it. All of you guys that's got them high-fluted cell phones, my son does it. Anywhere we go, he goes to the local conservation website and pulls up what kind of crustaceans are in the lake you're going to. Okay, and it will show you the color of the crawfish that actually live in your lake. And every state's got it, and it's a good way of doing it. And we actually try to mimic wherever we're going. When we go to Texas, those crawfish there are a real darker color with a lot of red in it. Up here, they're the main one that they eat the most of up here is called a Missouri long-pinchered blue crawdad. Okay, that's the one that there's 90% of the rocks you turn over a Table Rock Lake, that's what you see. And he's a real pale green pumpkin with a lot of blue in it. And like I say, when I'm there and I'm fishing, that's the color I'm going to throw a lot of, But a big thing is, when you throw that jig out there and they're not just jumping in the boat and you're catching one on every other cast, I a lot of times use my reel and I reel my jig along real easy. I don't raise my rod tip up too, because if I raise my rod back and forth, you're lifting your bait up off the bottom. Okay? When they're biting, that's okay. When they're not biting real good, I can only imagine that crawfish is crawling along the bottom. Okay? And so I reel my reeds real easy. And I actually just crawl my jig along the bottom. When I pull it up against like this rock, you pull it along, you got a little something firm there, so I'm either pulling it up to a tree, a stump, a rock, something like that. And a lot of us are real impatient, and you just immediately pull it up, oh, yeah, there's something, you just pull it on away from there. Well, think about what you just did, okay? I can only imagine that when a bass is hunting a crawfish, he's going to hunt around them rocks. He's down there looking around them rocks. So if you just pull your crawfish up and away from that pretty quick, give him a minute. That's his strike zone, is around that rock or that stump where he's used to hunting those crawfish. So I pull my jig up to that, whatever it is, like I say, a rock or a stone, and I pull it up there, and then I just give a little slack line. I let it sit for about 10 seconds. Okay? Now I'm going to tell you right now, I just said 10 seconds. All right? Next time you're out there and you've got a jig on the bottom of the lake, try to leave it set for 10 seconds. I'm just going to tell you right now, that's like watching paint dry. All right? You want to shake it and bob it, and if your hand's touching that reel handle, you're going to lose it. Okay? A lot of the better slope fishermen on the planet, you watch my dad. Half the time if you ever seen my dad on TV, he didn't have his hand on his reel handle. he's letting it sit. He's letting it do. And the neat thing about a crawfish on the back of a jig, by letting it set on the bottom, that rubber crawfish will just rise up off the bottom. That's the most natural thing a bass sees. When he sees a crawfish, he goes down there. God was very cruel to crawfish. He only gave you 2 defenses, neither one of them worked. Okay? That's the bad deal. But the main one is right before that bass pounces on it, he throws those claws up in the air, kind of a warning, oh, don't bite me, I'm going to pinch you. That doesn't do any good, but that's what he does. Well, that little jig with that crawfish strung up on it, that rubber actually, by letting it sit there, it floats up. That's what that fish is used to seeing, okay? Like I told you earlier at the start of this, I think I can take an ugly bait and make him bite it just by doing the right thing with it, okay? Like I say, 5 seconds, letting it sit, that's pretty realistic. You could do that, 10 seconds, about halftime, you gotta count your head. 1, 2, well, don't let your partner hear you count on your breath, or he'll think you're weird because you count out loud. But the whole thing of it is, give it a second to kind of do its thing. Let it perform. If you're nonstop moving it and pulling along, you're not ever letting that crawfish do what it's supposed to do and make it look right. And like I say, that's on those slow days when it's a little bit tougher, make your thing and do the right thing in the water. And like I say, I learned a lot of that by watching those fish in the fish tank. And it's pretty cool, to watch. My dad always tried to keep all 3 species in the tank good. We had a hard time on Lake the Ozarks keeping them smallmouth, but if it was in the summertime and I could go wade the creeks, I would catch a smallmouth and put it in there also. And basically, the only thing that taught me by having all 3 in there was the spotted bass is the junkyard dog bass. Okay, he's the meanest animal that swims in the water. All right, if he grew to be 100 pounds, they'd have to put warning signs on swimming beaches. You would read about him in the newspaper. Another 9-year-old taken down by a spotted bass and they were on plate. That's the way it would be, and that's why they're your friends. Spotted bass. We travel all over the world, and we just pray that they're spotted bass at the lakes we show up to, because that's a guarantee for guys like us that live around the Ozarks. We're going to catch about 10, 12 pounds, and it's because we take those little crawfish and the white baits, and we know how to fish with those spotted bass. We're going to weigh in our limits of those. But anyways, that's a cool way of learning. Know what your how they work and stuff. A Zoom fluke is one of my favorite baits to throw, and I really think 90% of the people in the world work it too much, because most of the time you don't see that shad dodging back and forth. Now that's beautiful, okay? When you throw that bait out there, that looks all dodges back and forth. How many times do you see a shad doing that though? Only when they're being chased. When they're being chased and stuff, they're dodging and darting around. Most times the little shad just swims along. When I'm not seeing any surface activity on the lake, I'm out there fishing and I don't see anything up busting and chasing, I throw my fluke out there next to a target. I just take off line, really, line along really, and it moves back and forth just enough. Looks just like a little shad coming through the water. That's just what I think about when I'm out there fishing. I make sure that the lure I'm putting in the water, I work it like a fish is used to seeing. And like I say, bass fishing for me is very common sense. Don't make it any harder than it has to be. Think about what they eat, think about what that thing does in the water, and try to mimic that. Like I say, sometimes you're going to take another bait to fish just because it's doing the right thing.
Tell you what, anything he says about jig fishing, you better be listening. You know what he's talking about. Instead of talking about a particular technique, something that is really important to me, and ever since I was young growing up, and I think all young anglers need to have a good understanding of the seasonal patterns of bass behavior. You want to be able, when you're going to go fishing in the wintertime, for instance, you want to kind of have an idea of what fish do in the wintertime. If it's pre-spawn or whatever, and I'll just kind of run through the way I see the seasonal patterns going. You can't get too deep into them because, there's a lot of different things that work at each season. But, it's like, first off, I'll start with what it is right now. We're in the winter stage right now, so this is what I call the winter season. And all these patterns and all these time frames are not always the same every year. You know, it can be weather dependent, and it also can be dependent on where you are fishing in the country. It can change, but all bass go through the same scenario every year, year after year. It's just a matter of determining where they're at in that time frame when you get ready to go fishing, wherever you are. But, you know, start off right now with a winter pattern. You know, you're going to know bass are relatively lethargic because the water's cold and they don't feed as much. They do feed. Bass feed all year long. So there's going to be some catchable bass even if the water's real cold. But you have to know that when you're going to go, you have to think about patterns that are going to work in cold water. You're going to have to slow down your fishing and think about patterns that are going to work in cold water. When you first start seeing a few hints of warming, a few warming trends, and the days start getting longer, you're going to start thinking, well, we're going to move into a pre-spawn stage. That's when the fish begin to move in and start thinking about feeding heavily, getting ready for the spawn, and they're aggressive. And it's the greatest time, in my opinion, to catch the biggest bass of the year. Maybe the biggest bass of your lifetime is during that pre-spawn stage. And you catch them on a lot of different baits. You know, you can catch them on wiggle warts, for instance. That's one of my favorite baits in the spring, in the Ozark Lakes, jerk baits, jigs, whatever. You know, just you're trying to imitate, basically you're trying to imitate the forage that the bass is feeding on, whether it be a crawdad or a shad or a bluegill or whatever. You worry about fishing 20 or 30 or 40 foot deep like you might be in the wintertime right now. And every bass there is available for you to catch, and you just slow down and fish slower baits. Plastics come into play a lot during that time frame. When the bass are starting to go on the beds and during the spawn, you want to slow down and fish with plastics, and big swim baits can be good, reeling something by a bed. Sometimes even a topwater over the top of the bed is good. But it's a great time to fish because you've got lots of opportunities, lots of fish up. And then you'll go into the post-spawn period, post-spawn phase. And that's when the fish are finished with their spawning and they'll start moving back out. I love post-spawn fishing because it's, fish have a tendency to school up more and they get aggressive again because they're, they're worn down from the spawn. They lose weight and not in the best of shape. Topwater pattern, shad type pattern, swim baits.